Hi, we are going to do a Amazon Quick Labs today. I have an Amazon Quick Labs monthly subscription. I am going to do a lab that is building your first Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, that is VPC. It is useful for learn AWS services quickly and it will make us confident while working with Amazon Web Services. I am going to explain about lab overview. This is lab overview. In this lab, you will create a basic virtual private cloud without using VPC widget. The VPC that is your build will include a web server and an Amazon RDS database. Once you have created both, you will connect your address book application running on your web server to your Amazon RDS for MySQL instance. Once you have successfully configured your address book application with your RDS instance, you will be able to add and remove contacts from the address book. So in this lab, we are going to cover some topics. Those are create an Amazon virtual private cloud, create a public and private subnet, create an internet gateway, create a route table and added a route table to the internet. Create a security group for your web server to only allow HTTP traffic to your web server and create a security group for your MySQL RDS instance to only allow MySQL traffic from your public subnet and also covered deploy a web server and a MySQL RDS instance. Configure your applications to connect your MySQL RDS instance. What is VPC? VPC is nothing but Amazon Virtual Private Cloud. Amazon Virtual Private Cloud, Amazon VPC, lets you provision a logical isolated section of the Amazon Web Services cloud where you can launch AWS resources in a virtual network that you define. You have complete control over your virtual network environment. Include sections of your own IP address range, creation of subnets and configuration of route tables and network gateways. You can use both IPv4 and IPv6 in your VPC for secure and easy access to your resources and applications. So here we can start the lab. There are a lot of tasks in this lab. So first of all, we need to do it step by step. First task is create a VPC. In this task, you will create a base VPC. In earlier we have talked about VPC. So a virtual private cloud is a virtual network dedicated to your AWS account. It is logically isolated from other virtual networks in the AWS cloud. You can launch your AWS resources such as Amazon EC2 instances into your VPC. So you can configure your VPC by modifying its IP address range, create subnets and configure route tables, network gateways and security settings. So I'm going to start the lab. What is VPC? VPC is nothing but virtual private cloud. Lets you provision a logical isolated section of the Amazon Web Services where you can launch AWS resources in a virtual network that you define. You have complete control over your virtual network environment, including selection of your own IP address range, create a subnets and configuration of route tables and network gateways. You can use both IPv4 and IPv6 in your VPC for secure and easy access to resources and applications. It is called as VPC. In short term, I have an Amazon Quick Labs monthly subscription, so that is why I am going to do this lab in Quick Labs. Task 1 is a, a time remaining less than 1 minute. If you done this lab, you can able to do VPCs in everywhere. I mean, you can create. Yeah, this is my console. Yeah, it is a new version of console. I mean, it gives us good experience when compared to other version, earlier version. Yeah, what is my first task? Create an VPC. First task is create an VPC. So here there are a lot of services are there in Amazon console. So I'm going to create a VPC now. So in this lab, these all resources are already created because I have a monthly subscription. So those resources are already created. Some of the resources are created, but now we have to create VPC. So for that, go to create a VPC. So what is VPC? VPC is the isolated portion of the AWS cloud populated by AWS object such as Amazon EC2 instance. So what is the name tag of my VPC? My VPC is a name tag in my case in the lab instructions. IPv4 cider blocks. Cider means what is IPv4? Specify an IPv4 cider block or IP address range for your VPC. We need to specify uh, IP addresses range. If there is an Amazon VPC IP address manager, IPAM is nothing but Amazon VPC IP address manager. IPv4 address pool available in this region. You can get a CA CIDR from an Amazon IP address manager pool. If you selected an IP manager pool, the size of the CIDR is limited by the allocation rules on the IPAM pool. Allowed minimum, allowed maximum, and default. If there is no IPv4 IPAM, pool in this region, you can manually input an IPv4 shader. The shader block size must have between the masks, in between masks. The shader block size must be in between the /16 or /24. So as per instructions, I have to give IPv4 shader block is 10.0.0.16 because /16 is a mask. How many IPs will be given /16? 65,000, I think so. IPv. Here we don't need to give IPv6 because I have already given IPv4 IP address. What is tenancy? Tenancy is nothing but you can run instances in your VPC on single tenant. That means you can run instances in your VPC on single tenant. Dedicated hardware select dedicated to ensure that instance launched in this VPC are dedicated tenancy instance regardless of the tenancy attribute specified to launch. Select default to ensure that instance launched in this VPC. We have to select, I mean dedicated means we have to select hard. If tenancy is dedicated, we have to select dedicated. Otherwise, we can select default as well as launched in this VPC. Use the tenancy attribute specified at the launch. Okay, tags will be used to I mean identify the resources, identification of the resources in the AWS console. Tag is a label that you can assign to an AWS resources. Each tag consists of the key and an optional value. You can use tags to search and filter your resources. You can use tags to search and filter your resources and track your AWS cost. So key is a name and value is a, we have to give format of key value pair. So name is a my VPC. So now I have to create it. So first task is I have completed first task. So that is create a VPC. So take second one is create a your public subnets. What is public subnet? So create your public subnet. In this task, you will create a two public subnets. Each subnet will resides in a separate availabilities groups. Later in this lab, you will launch your web server into one of the public subnets. A subnet is a range of IP addresses in your VPC. You can launch AWS resources into the specified subnets. Use a public subnet offers resources that must be connected to the internet and a private subnet for resources that won't be connected to the internet, which means public subnets are connected to the internet gateway. I mean internet, and private subnets resources are won't be connected to the internet. So that is our aim. Create your first public subnet. So how to create public first private public subnet, sorry, first public subnets. So in here we can navigate it under virtual private cloud. We have an option called subnets. So here all are available and those are default because IPv4 CIDR is 172.31.16 so all are the default IP addresses for this region. So I have to create two public IP addresses. So for that I'm going to create here create subnet. So what is the name of VPC which we have created earlier? My VPC. So this is associated with the 10.0.0.16. Is it is a mask, so it is indicated the uh, how many IP addresses are mm, available in this CIDR, IPv4 CIDR. So what is the name of subnet? Public subnet. Public one is a public subnet. Now availability zone is select the first availability zone in this list. First availability zone is US West 2A. In this region, first availability zone is how many availability zones are there in this region? Four availability zones are there in this region. So US East, US West 2A is a first availability zone in this region. So what is the IPv4 CIDR for this availability zone? This is a IPv4 CIDR block. So we're going to give 24/24. It is a mask. So what is the name of the what is the name sorry what is the name of the tags? It will help us to track and minimize the cost of the AWS. So name is a public public. Okay. Then now I'm going to create a public subnet. So and also directly we can okay not now because we have to assign IP address, public IP address. This is the public IP which we have created now. It is available or not. So once public subnet is created, then in this action menu, select the edit subnet task and then configure enable auto assign public IPv4 address. We have to configure public IPv4 address, edit subnet settings. So here we can find auto assign IP address. So what is this? By default, non-default subnets have the IPv4 public addressing attributes set to false, and default subnet have these attributes set to true. I mean addressing attributes set to false and default subnets have the attributes to set to true. Okay. An exception is a non-default subnets created by the Amazon EC2 launch instance wizard. The wizard sets the attributes are to true. So I have to assign enabled auto assign public IPv4. Enable the auto assign IP settings to automatically request a public IPv4 or IPv6 address for the new network interface in the subnet. Then say it now. Then enable auto assign public IPv4 address. So that is completed. So now we have to create second public subnet. Click create subnet, then configure. What is the VPC? Which we have created in the earlier, that is a my VPC, and subnet name is a public 2 and availability zone. We have to select availability zone in the second availability zone in the region, and IPv4 CIDR black is a 10.0.2.0 because we have given already in 10.0.1.0/24 in the first public subnet. So we can't give same IP CIDR block in the same region and same VPC. We can't give. So now I have created another VPC. I have I want to create another VPC. sorry, my VPC, and associated with the slash mask slash 16, and subnet name is a public 2, and what is the availability zone? It is second availability zone in the region. Then what is the IP address? IP address is a 10.0.2. Okay, then create a subnet. Tags are already added. Then we have to enable auto assign public IP address. This is the public 2, and edit subnets and enable auto assign public subnet, because enable auto assign IP settings to automatically request a public IPv4 or IPv6 address for the new network interface in the subnet, which means automatically request a public IPv4 for a new network interface in the subnet. So save it. It is done. Then even though your subnets are labeled public 1 and public 2, they not at public subnets. A public subnet must have an internet gateway, which you will attach in the next task. So next task is, I have completed create your public subnets. Create two public subnets. Okay, then task 3 is a create an internet gateway. In this task, you will create an internet gateway you so that traffic can access your web server. An internet gateway is a horizontal scaled, redundant and high available VPC component that allows communication between instances in your VPC and the internet. It therefore imposes no availability risks or bandwidth constraints on your network traffic. An internet gateway services serves two purposes: to provide a target in your VPC route tables for internet routable traffic, and to perform network address translation NAT. I mean, NAT is nothing but network address translation for instances that have been assigned public IPv4 addresses. So for that in this in the left navigation pane, click on network gateways. So network in network under VPC, I mean left navigation pane, in left navigation pane under VPC, uh, one option is there, one component is there, that is internet gateway. So click on create internet gateway, then configure the name of the internet gateway is my internet gateway, and create the internet gateway. Then go to the actions menu and select attach it to the VPC, then configure available VPCs, my VPC. So we have to attach the VPC to the internet gateway. For that we have to go for left navigation panel, and under VPC private virtual private cloud, we have a component is called internet gateway. In internet gateway we have to create internet gateway for my VPC. So after creating internet gateway we have to attach my VPC. So it is able to connect to the internet, so it is called as internet gateway. So what is the name of internet gateway? my IG internet gateway. So what is the name of the tag? I mean, name is a key and my IG is a value. So it will you can use tags to search and filter your resources and track your AWS costs. So the internet gateway was created successfully. So in internet gateway, here it is attached state. So I need to attach to the my VPC. So go to attach to VPC. What is our VPC? That is my VPC. So attach internet gateway. So now we can see the state is attached. So the next step is this will attach to the internet gateway to your VPC even though you created an internet gateway and attach to it your VPC. You still have to tell instance within your public subnet how to get to the internet. Yeah, you still have to tell instances within your public subnet how to get to the internet. That is why we have created internet gateway and attach it to the my VPC. What is the fourth task? Fourth task is create a route tables and add route tables and add routes and associate public subnets. In this task, you will create a route table for instance bound traffic. Add a route to the route table to direct internet bound traffic to your internet gateway and associate your public subnets with your route table. A route table contains a set of rules called routes. A route table contains a set of rules called routes that are used to determine where the network traffic is directed. Each subnet in your VPC must be associated with route tables. The table controls the routing for the subnet. A subnet can only be associated with one route table at a time, but you can associate multiple subnets with the same route table. The use an internet gateway, your subnet route table must contain a route the direct internet bound traffic to the internet gateway. You can scope the route to all destinations not explicitly known to the route table. 0.0.0.0 for IPv4 or IP/0 for IPv6, or you can scope the route to the narrower range of IP addresses. For example, the public IPv4 addresses of your company public endpoints outside of AWS, or the elastic IP addresses of the other Amazon EC2 instances outside your VPC. If your subnet is associated with a route table that has a route to an internet gateway, it is known as a public subnet. So in the left navigation panel, and earlier we can see that under VPC we have a component is called route table. So we have to create route table. There is a current one default route table associated with the VPC, my VPC. Yeah, these routes traffic locally. You will now created an additional route table to route public traffic to your internet gateway. Click route, create route table. Under route table settings section, then configure. Name of the route table is public route table and VPC which we have created earlier, that is my VPC, and we then create. So click on route table in the lower half page and notice that there is a one route in your route table that allows traffic with the 10.0.0./16 network to flow within the network, but it does not route table outside of the network. You will now add a new route to enable public traffic. So what is the 20 step? Click edit routes. Okay, here, until here we will create. After that, edit the routes. So under, as we have seen in the lab description, here we have find route table. So create a route table. So what is that name of the route table? Public route table. And what is our VPC, which we have created earlier? My VPC. And then name is a public route table and create a route table. Yeah, it's done. Route table is was created successfully. We can check it is created or not. Yeah, name is public route table and main is no, and this is a VPC. Edge association is not there, and for subnets, and it is not okay. Here we can VPC and routes. Okay, now we have to edit the routes. Click on edit routes and click on add routes, then configure. Destination is a 0.0.0/0. Selection internet gateway in the drop down, then select the display internet gateway ID. Yeah, routes, or else you can go here, edit routes directly, and 0.0. What is the internet gateway? Internet gateway. Yeah, it is internet gateway. It is the internet gateway ID. Yeah, route table was successfully created, uh, updated. Click on Subnet Association tab and explicitly Subnet Association, edit Subnet Association, Subnet Association. Yeah, here Subnet Association is, it is Subnet Association. What is Subnet Association? Change which subnets are associated with this no, route table. Yeah, these are the public route tables. Save association. Yeah, it is done. Then under selection section, explicitly subnet association, click add subnet association, select public one and private one, and save the association. The two subnets are now public because they connect to the internet via internet gateway. Two two public subnets are now public because they connect to the internet via internet gateway. So it is done. Task 4 is done, and now we are going to do a task 5. Create a security group for your web server. So in this task you will add a security group so that user can access your web server via HTTP. User can access your web server via HTTP. So we have to open HTTP port, that is 80. A security group acts as a virtual firewall for your instance to control inbound and outbound traffic. When you launch an instance in your VPC, You can assign up to 5 security groups to the instance. Security groups act as at the instance level, not the subnet level. Therefore, each instance in a subnet in your VPC could be assigned to a different set of security groups. If you do not specify a particular group at launch time, the instance is automatically assigned to the default security group for the VPC. In the left navigation pane, click Security Groups, create a security group, then configure. What are the parameters? Security group name is a web server, so because we have to, users can access your web server via HTTP, so that is why we are going to launch the web server. So security group name is a web server and description is a my web server security group. And what is a VPC? My VPC. There are three components mainly we have to specify. So create a security group. What is security group? Yeah, here create a security group. What is the name of the security group? Web server. Then description is a my web server security group. And also what is the VPC which we have created earlier in the, yeah, it is a VPC. And what is the inbound rule? Inbound rule is a nothing but a, we have to specify rules in the security group. So a security group act as a virtual firewall for your instance to control inbound and outbound traffic. When you launched an instance in a VPC, you can assign up to 5 security groups to the instance. This is the limitation to one instance. So one instance we can assign 5 security groups. We can assign 5 security groups. That's it. So what is the inbound rule? We have to select HTTP. HTTP is a web server. So here it is mentioned you will add to security group it so that user can access your web server via HTTP. So that is why I am adding HTTP. HTTP port range is 80 default. So here custom, yeah, source is anywhere IPv4, IPv4 anywhere from IPv4. So that's it, and create a security group. That's done. So fifth task is completed, and sixth task is launch a web server in your public subnet. So in this task you will launch a web server that runs an address book application. In this task you will launch a web server that runs an address book application. Later in the lab you will connect your address book applications to a Amazon RDS for MySQL instance. On the services menu, click EC2. Yeah, I'm going to launch an EC2 instance, which is web server, which is a web server. So go to services and EC2 virtual servers in the cloud. So I'm going to launch an instance is called Amazon AMI. What is the AMI? Amazon Linux 2 AMI. We have to choose that. Launch an instance. In instance, there is no instance right now. It is not running or stopped state. So here we can see all the instances which we have created. Now I didn't create any VPC. I mean, I didn't create any instance right now. So launch an VPC, launch an EC2 instance. Uh, we have to select Amazon Linux to AMI because in lab session, they are mentioned we have to select Amazon Linux to AMI. So for that case, I'm selecting Amazon Linux to AMI in the configuration button. So you will I have to select T2 micro instance and T2 micro instance, that IP is 1 CPU, vCPU and 1 GB of memory. One CPU instance IP is T2 micro and one CPU and 1 GB of memory. It is a free type eligibility. So I can go to the now here is a number of instances. Number of instances is a 1, and because we are going to launch web server only. And what is the network? Network is a my VPC because we are going to launch an VPC. We are going to launch an EC2 into our created VPC, which we have created in the earlier. Yeah, subnet is sorry, IBPC, and advanced details is a user data. We have to copy this user data because after launching an EC2 instance, these commands are executed and HTTP web server application is installed in our EC2 instance. So for that we have to give this uh, user data before launching the instance. So copy this and pasting it into user data. Yeah, you can see this is, and copy this data into your notepad and paste it into user data text box, and then add your storage. This script runs the first time the instance is launched. You can see here it install the web server on your EC2 instance and run an application that can be configured to the point to your MySQL RDS instance. After you configure your RDS instance, it will present an address book that you can edit, add storage and add tags. Add tags is a name web server. So in the earlier we have discussed about the as default add storage is the default and add tags is a, in the earlier we have discussed about the tags. Tags will help us to track and I mean filter and search or filter or track our EC2 resources. What is the key? We are going to launch web server. So web server is a value. So instances is a instance value. Okay. Network interface. Okay. Yeah, here is a sec configure security group. Security group is already created for our VPC. So select an existing security group web server, review and launch. So because we have already discussed about the existing web server. So this is a web server which we have created in the earlier web server security group. So this is a type HTTP because we are going to launch an web server. For that case, we have to open the port HTTP. The HTTP port default port is 80. Yeah, you will not be able to connect instance will be required port 22 to be opened in order to access. Here we are going to proceed with we are going to proceed with a key, without keeper because it is a lab, quick labs AWS resources, so that we are using. In your case, you have to choose create a key pair, or choose an existing key pair, then launch an instance. Yeah, instance is now launched. Yeah, it is. You can see this is web server is pending and instance state is pending. We will wait for that until it is success. It gets stuck success. Yeah, it is running. Now it is running. We can check uh, details of the instance. It is a public IPv4 and public private IPv4 address. This is a DNS, IP DNS. Yeah, this is the all details about the Elastic Cloud Computing which you have created. The name is web server. These are all the details of the instance. Yeah, instance state is running. 45 step. Your instance should be selected. If not selected, yeah, blue tick is instance should be selected and not selected. Yeah, here is selected and not selected. Copy the public IPv4 address of the instance to your clipboard. Open a new web browser tab and paste the IP address into the browser. What is what it is saying? Copy the public IPv4 address and paste it to the IPv4 address and into the browser. Yeah, select it and copy the public address and paste it into the here. Yeah, it is launching. It is launching a browser, and because we have already given user data to the instance, so for in that case it is already while before creating EC2 instance and launching EC2 instance. After launching EC2 instance, automatically it will install all the packages which we have created, which we have mentioned in the user data. Yeah, now it will appears, and congratulations, you should be able to see this page, and currently you do not have a database server. So in the overview, once you have created your RDS instance, you will be able to connect it to your web server. So web pages launched because we have configured EC2 instance, but for this web page we have to configure database. So after that we will able to log in this web page and store the data into the database. Create private subnets for your MySQL server. Task 7 is a create a private subnets for your MySQL server. So we have to create private subnets for the database, because private subnets are not connected to the internet. They are connected. They are communicate with subnets. In VPC, there are two types of subnets. One is public and second one is private. So public subnet is connected to the directly connected to the internet gateway, that will connected to the internet with the help of internet gateway. Private subnet is not connected to the internet gateway, because that is a private, because users should not connect to the database, because that is a secure data. It will manage and maintain the data into the database. So for that case, we have to create private subnets. So those subnets are not directly connected to the internet. To deploy your RDS database, your VPC must have at least one subnet in at least two availability zones in this region where you want to deploy your database instance. In this task, you will create two private subnets for your Amazon RDS instance. Create your first private subnet. These are the options to create a private subnet. What is the name of the subnet? Private one. And what is the availability zone? Select the first availability zone in the list. And IPv4 CIDR black is a 10.0.3.0/24 mask, because uh, 10.0.2.0 is already given to the public subnet. So one VPC, uh, in one VPC we can't give same IP address to the another subnet. We couldn't give it doesn't overlap. I mean, it doesn't work. So go to subnets, go to subnets. What is VPC? Here VPC. Under VPC section, we will find subnets. So we are going to create private subnet. What is the VPC which we have created in the earlier? My VPC. And subnet name is a private one. Private. What is the name of this private one? It is private one. Yeah. Availability zone. Availability zone. Select the second availability zone in the list. Select the first availability zone in the list. Yeah. What is the IP address? IP address should be 10.0.3.0/24 mask. 24. Yeah. Yeah. Tags will be default, because it will automatically detect. Yeah, it's done. Yeah, one subnet is done. And second one, my VPC. And private one, private 2. What is the name of instance? Private. And what is available? Select the second one of the drop down organ. Yeah, it's done. Tags will be detected automatically. Yeah, what is the IP address? IP address should be IPv4 address should be this one. Yeah, my VPC. Sorry, I didn't select the my VPC. What is the subnet name? Private. Private. What is VPC? Here is a VPC. Yeah, it's done. What is the tag? And it tags will be automatically detected. Now public 1, public 2, private 1, private 2 are there and all are available. Create a security group for your database server. Security group, database is a security group and security group will be my VPC and inbound is a MySQL or Aurora. Security group is a create a security group, my VPC, database server and my database. What is a VPC? Which my VPC? Yeah, inbound road is a MySQL Aurora. It is a custom. Yeah, paste the web server security group ID that you have copied in the text editor. Create a web server group ID custom. Okay, paste the web server security group ID that you have copied to your text editor. What is security group? We have already. Security group is a web server, so it is already created. So security group ID is a security group ID. It is a security group ID. This is a security group ID and all traffic security. Yeah, it's done. Yeah, database was created successfully. Security data security group of database was successfully created. Then create a database. Task 9 is create a database subnet group. RDS relational database services in lab. Amazon RDS instance requires a database subnet group. In this task, you will create a database subnet group. A database subnet group is a collection of subnets, typically private, that you created in VPC and that you then designate for your database instances. Each database subnet group should have subnets in it in at least two availability zones in a given region. When creating a database instance in a VPC, you must select a database subnet group. On the services menu, click RDS. In the left navigation pane, click subnet groups. Click create database subnet group, then configure my subnet group. Subnet groups. Create a my subnet group. Name is a my subnet group. Sorry, this is a my subnet group and description will be my subnet group. And then VPC should be my VPC and availability zones should be do not select availability zones. No, subnets. This is a 3 4 kada 3 4. Yeah, A2B. Add your private subnets. In the add subnet section, configure the following availability zones. Select the first and select availability zones in the list. Yeah, in the subnet section, select 10.0.0 and 10.0.4.0 at the bottom. Create. So I have selected all the details which I have mentioned in the lab description. Yeah, successfully created my subnet group. What is the task 10? Task 10 is a create an Amazon RDS database. You are now ready to launch an Amazon RDS database running MySQL. In this left navigation panel, click on database and click on create database, then configure. Engine option is a MySQL because MySQL is a web server database. Version is a version, we have to mention version. It is a very important to select version. This lab requires it for the application because this lab requires it for the application. Application requires database is 5.7.31. So this version is supported for the web server application. So I'm going to create a database. Select create database and select MySQL. Engine option is a MySQL because MySQL 5.7.31 is supported for the web application. 5.7.31. Yes. In the settings section, we have to configure like this. What is the DB instance identifier? My DB. Yeah, leave it as default. And DB instance identifier. What is DB instance identifier? Type a name for your DB instance. The name must be unique across all DB instances owned by your AWS account in the current AWS region. The name should be unique across all databases in the AWS region. Yeah, okay. What is the master username? Username should be admin. And what is the master password? Master password should be mentioned in the lab password. Lab password. Yeah, lab password, and also confirm password is also lab password. Then standard class is a burstable class because T2 micro, T3 micro is also T2 micro or TB T3 micro. T2 micro. T2 micro is also. Storage is nothing but storage type. General purpose SSD storage is suitable for a broad range of database workloads, provides baseline of 3 IOPS per GB and ability to burst 3000 input output per second. Provisioned is a IOPS SSD storage is suitable for input and output intensive database workloads, provides flexibility to provision input and output ranges from 1000 to 80,000 input and output per second. It is called as storage type. So in storage section, deselect enable storage auto scaling, and also connectivity section, yeah, deselect, uh, and in additional configuration section, click on additional configuration section. Initial database name is a MyDB. Initial database is a MyDB. VPC should be MyVPC, and also password authentication. Additional configuration is a database option MyDB. 5.7, and enable auto backups. We don't need now. Create a point in time snapshot of your database. No need to create a snapshot for the for now. If you want to create a snapshot, then you can create. Enable enhanced monitoring. It is also not recommended. Enable auto monitoring version upgrade. These are all the deselect. We have to deselect. Upgrade. These are all the okay. Enable deletion protection. Deletion protection. Protect the database from the being deleted accidental. While option is enabled, you can't delete the database. So enable deletion protection is very useful for our AWS service, which is while whenever we want to uh, whenever accidentally we had create we have deleted, then mm, then it can't delete the database. Yeah, your database might take a few minutes to launch. It will take some time to create and launch, so we have to wait it for that. After creating that database and launching, then we have to check the address book is connected to the database or not. That is a task 11. So in this task you will connect to the address book application in your private subnet to your database. In your private subnet, obtain your MySQL database point. Before you can connect your database book address book application to your database, you need to know the endpoint of the RDS instance. This is the address of your RDS instance. Click your MyDB instance in the connectivity and security section. Copy the endpoint to your clipboard. Your RDC endpoint should look similar to here. Connect to your database. Yeah, we have given database name is a MyDB and username is a admin and password is the lab password. So congratulations, it will appears like this after logging into the database. So now we will be going to check it will creating or not. It is taking some time. The database might take a few minutes to launch. These are all the steps we have to follow while building your first Amazon virtual private cloud. This is a best practice to get understand. It will take some time, so we have to refresh it. Once a database is created, then it will appears in the status. It is now creating. Wait for some time. Yeah, I see this status is modifying. Yeah, current activity is zero connections. So once you connect with the database, the connections will be appears displayed in the connections section. If you connect, if one user is connected, then it will connect. It will shows the connections. Yeah, you can see CPU utilization of the database. 6.60% is occupied the CPU. Yeah, actually it takes more time. Yeah, it will increasing slowly. Once it done, we can able to connect to the these. Yeah, what is the endpoint? Endpoint is nothing but Yeah, yeah. Endpoint is find. You can find endpoint. Click on my DB instance and connectivity and security, and endpoint is displayed at the connectivity and security. So your RDS endpoint should look similar to like this. It's taking more time. Conclusion is created a, last final conclusion is, after creating this database, you have to give endpoint that is created in the database, database endpoint, and DB name and admin and password. Once you have given that credentials, you have logged to the address book successfully. So address book information is saved in the Amazon RDS for the MySQL database. What we have created in the earlier, just reminder, created an Amazon Virtual Private Cloud VPC and created a public and private subnets and created an internet gateway and created a route table and added two route table to the internet and created a security group for your web server to only allow HTTP traffic to your web server and created a security group for your MySQL RDS instance to only allow MySQL traffic from your public subnet. Deploy web server and a MySQL RDS instance and configured your applications to connect to your MySQL RDS instance. That's it.